Welcome to SMEX Ed. Class is in session.
I'm your host, Amanda King, and I'm here to teach anybody who wants to fucking listen how to have the audacity to say fuck it to societal standards and live their most authentic life. This podcast is dedicated to bringing the sexual conversations we have behind doors onto the main fucking stage. Because sex, masturbation, squirting, guess what? It is all normal. And by bringing these conversations to the forefront, we help people feel less alone in this world. We help them feel safe. We help them gain their power back. We help them step into their confidence and express themselves sexually in this world unapologetically. Because it takes fucking audacity to be your truest self. And we have a boatloads of audacity all up in this bitch. So let me ask you this. Are you ready for some epic shit? About 2 weeks ago, I fucked myself so hard that I unlocked this whole new level of self-confidence and self-worth. Do I have your attention? Good. I did a Snapchat story segment today that received such positive feedback from the women who follow me on Snapchat that I wanted to come up and just dedicate a podcast episode to the exact same topic, which is self-confidence with self-pleasure, and just how masturbation can make you such a confident individual. And I started the stories by discussing something that recently happened to me, and I want to kind of share that with you. If you're a little squeamish, I'm not going to get too into the TMI, but basically 2 weeks ago, I decided to have a masturbation session. I had the house to myself. I just kind of wanted to relax, unwind, and I wanted to explore my body. And during this time, I kind of went in with the notion, the idea of like, how much pleasure can I actually feel during one session? Because as women, we all know that the more orgasms we have, the more sensitive we become, right? We've discussed this before. Your clit enlarges, it engorges, it becomes highly sensitive because it's full of 10,000 nerve endings. And so, a lot of times during solo sessions, I will get to a certain precipice of pleasure, a certain level, and I will back off because I will just be like, I don't know. Can my body produce anything more than this? Is it capable of anything more than just a few orgasms here or there? And I went into the session and was like, let's test this out and let's see, without backing off, without freaking out in a way, without getting overwhelmed by the intensity. What happens if I just let it ride and just sink into the feeling of what I'm doing and allow myself the permission to really figure out how much pleasure my body was capable of? Because I've stated this before, you are never more safe. You are never more supported. You are never more secure than you are during a masturbation or self-pleasure session, whatever you like to call it. There is no one in this world who will make you come like you can make you come. And that's not a dig at partners, and it's not a dig at other people. It's just when you are by yourself, you feel really safe in that moment. You feel like you can be in that moment. There aren't other distractions. It's just you with you. And so self-pleasure sessions are where you can find like your body can reach pleasure capabilities that you didn't even know was possible. And like we all set sometimes limitations on ourselves of what we can achieve in life and in our sexuality. And what if we just tried one time to see if we could push beyond those limitations? What could happen? And I did this self-pleasure session, and I produced some of the most mind-blowing, like earth-shattering orgasms that I've ever received in my existence as a human being. And it was the coolest. I don't know any other word to make it sound more like eloquent. But it was the most coolest thing I've ever experienced and the most powerful thing and the most beautiful experience I've ever had. And there were times during it where I literally was feeling such intense pleasure. I thought I was going to cry. Like I thought I was going to cry. My body was shaking and convulsing in ways that I had never experienced before. And afterwards, I remember I like tried to stand up and my legs were gone. Like my legs were just like, no, we can't do this. You need to chill out for a little bit. And it was almost like my ears had not popped, but like were almost like that ringing sensation, or I don't know how to explain it, but it was the coolest thing that I've ever experienced. And in that moment afterwards, when my adrenaline was pumping and my endorphins were like filling my body, and I was at this state of just pure fucking relaxation and peace, I remember thinking, holy fucking shit, I just unlocked this whole new level of myself. And it really was, I unlocked 3 new levels of myself during this self pleasure session. I unlocked my self confidence. I unlocked my value and my self worth. And I unlocked a whole new level of vulnerability with myself. And I want to discuss those things with you today and just kind of have a discussion about self pleasure, because self pleasure is something that a lot of people, I don't know, don't experience, which always makes me so sad. And I used to be the same way. So that's not it makes me sad that I'm on this fucking hill of like self pleasure loving and I'm like looking down on you. I used to be you. I used to be someone who never masturbated. I used to be someone who barely touched herself. I used to be someone who sought pleasure in other people rather than bringing pleasure to myself. And it was a sad way of living. And I am such an advocate for self pleasure. And I talk about it on my platform so much because I just believe that self pleasure is a way to not only reconnect with your body, but reconnect with your mind, with your fucking soul. It is the one place where you can just be with you, like I said, in that moment and push your body beyond its limits and know that you are so fucking safe in that moment, and that the only person who matters in that moment is you and what you want and what you desire and what feels good to you. And a lot of people will sit here and may even sit here and say like, oh, Jesus Christ, it's just masturbation. Stop trying to make it some spiritual thing, some holy thing, something that is anything but it is so much more than that. Masturbation, sex, all of it is so intertwined, and we treat it like a generalized statement, right? And I was saying this on Snapchat today. It was like when people sit here and say, oh, well, it's just sex. I feel like those people aren't having the level of sex that I desire to have, because sex isn't just sex. Sex is intimacy. Sex is connection. Sex is safety and vulnerability and support. And if you think sex is just sex, you're not having the level of intimate, deep, raw, carnal sex you could be having if you allowed yourself to explore the other areas. And self pleasure is the same way. Self pleasure is intimate, it's connection with yourself and with your body. It is vulnerability in that moment when you are coming, squirting, ejaculating, when you are orgasming, when you are at the precipice of pleasure. You are never more vulnerable than you are in that moment when you let everything go and you're just there with your orgasm. And self pleasure is something that every person should experience, whether or not you're with someone, or especially if you're with someone or you're by yourself. Self pleasure is a way to create a map of your body, right? Self pleasure is a way to get to know your body on such an intimate and just inner trust knowing way. Self pleasure is a way for you to find out what makes you tick, what makes you yearn, what makes you want, what makes you desire. Self pleasure is a way of it's a way of exploration, and it's a way of just, I don't know, reconnecting with yourself on so many levels. And It's a way to get to know your body so that you can communicate with your partners. Hey, I really like when I do this. Can you do this? It's a way to feel safe with yourself in your body so that when you are with partners, you can practice letting go as much as you allow yourself to let go during masturbation. It is a way to have a happier, healthier, better sex life. A lot of people think masturbation is used to supplement sex, right? And in some cases, it can be, but masturbation can also lead you to have a better, happier, healthier sex life because you are getting to know your body on an intimate level and you're getting to connect with it. And it feels so good. It makes you feel so good and it makes you feel powered and empowered. Powerful and empowered. And then that way you feel sexier in your body, which makes you want to have sex more because you love the feeling that comes with masturbation. You treat masturbation like a gift, not a chore. You treat masturbation like it's a time that you deserve rather than a time that you have to do. And masturbation becomes the key that unlocks intimacy with yourself, which allows you to be intimate with another person. So masturbation is so much more than just touching yourself. And it can be, if you can sit here and you can make fun of me and say that this is too woo-woo or this is too spiritual, but you're clearly not masturbating the way you should if you say that, because it should be a spiritual experiment. All orgasming should lead to some type of fifth fucking consciousness. Leave your body, see whoever you pray to and or believe in that moment. Orgasms are a gift as well that people should experience. And when you have one, you should just honor that fucking gift. Like there is no tomorrow because you don't know if you have another one tomorrow. They're so precious. And yet we treat sex and we treat masturbation and orgasms like they're just things, but they're not things. They're intimacy. They're beautiful. And a lot of people look at self-pleasure, like I said, like a chore when self-pleasure is self-care. I said that today on Snapchat and a woman messaged me and she said, that is the best thing I've heard. Self-pleasure is self-care. Because I just like, I masturbate on occasion, but now I realize that I should start making more time for myself to masturbate, which everybody on this planet should be making time to check in with themselves, because that's what you're doing during self-pleasure is you're checking in with yourself. You're checking in with your body to say, how do I feel in this moment? Self-pleasure is a way to relieve stress, to relieve trauma, to relieve life and adulting and existence. Because I was saying this to my husband today. I was like, no one prepares you for how shitty being an adult is. And I live a very blessed life. And adulting is fucking hard. And existing and the human journey is fucking hard. But during self-pleasure, you just get to let all of that go for that minimal amount of time and just be there with yourself. And when you start practicing self-pleasure on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, and you tune into your body's wants, needs, and desires on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, you become a completely different person. I've said this in articles, and I will say this till like I'm blue in the face. Self-pleasure, masturbation literally changed my life. 2 years ago, I would not have been up on this platform talking about these things. Go ahead and check the podcast. Scroll back to about 2 years ago and see what I was talking about. I was talking about business coaching, or I was talking about human design and all those, although at the time those things were important to me, they weren't my soul's mission. They weren't, I don't want to say, I don't know, they were my purpose for the time being, but I always felt like I had a little bit bigger of a purpose than to be talking about business. And masturbation helped me find that purpose. Masturbation helped me find myself. Masturbation took me out of fight, flight, and freeze and allowed me to reconnect with my body, reconnect with my husband, reconnect and or connect with an entire world of people out there who were struggling with the exact same thing, who needed a voice and just needed someone to say, you know, this is okay. And like, we all do it and we experiment with it and we're safe in doing so. And it changed everything about me Go look at my pictures 2 years ago and look at the pictures I post today. Same woman, completely different level of confidence, self-worth, and vulnerability. And 2 weeks ago, when I probably came harder than I ever have in my entire fucking existence on this planet, I recognized how incredible of a person I am. And I unlocked this first level of self-confidence, because when you can bring yourself to that level of pleasure, you start recognizing how powerful of a being you are, how incredibly magical your body is, right? Think of the female body in general. We are capable of so many things. We are capable of 12 different styles of orgasms. We are capable of squirting. We are capable of coming or creaming, whatever terminology you want to use. We are full of so many erogenous zones that even modern science cannot keep up with what we are capable of doing. They have no idea. And that is fucking incredible, right? That is just mind-blowing that scientists can't even figure out our fucking bodies because they're so cool. And so when you masturbate to the level of this earth-shattering, life-changing orgasm, because it was a life-fucking-changing orgasm, you start realizing, like, I am the coolest fucking thing on the planet. My body is capable of producing what it just produced. That is something that deserves to be praised. It deserves to be appreciated. It deserves to be empowered and embraced. And in that moment, when you have that style orgasm, you all of a sudden feel like the most powerful being on the planet because your body was able to do and produce that. It makes you recognize that if you give that ability for someone else to see you like that, they're the luckiest fucking person on the planet. And they should recognize that within themselves. They should recognize the value of fucking you, the value of even being in your presence, even in a non-sexual way. They should value your thoughts, your beliefs, and your views because you are so self-confident in yourself that they can't even question it because you hold yourself with such grace and such strength because you're able to do this for yourself. Then no one can fuck with you. No one can shake you. You become unfuckable with. It made me realize in that moment how much I sell myself short on so many levels with so many people in my life. Yes, masturbation did that. It unlocked this new level of just recognizing how fucking worthy I am of everything in life. I really struggle with self-worth. It's something that if I'm talking about a trigger or something that is just like that little demon that's on the side of my shoulder, that is always constantly in the back of my head fucking with me, I struggle with self-worth. I tie my self-worth to and my value to other people. If they're paying attention to me or if they're talking to me, I'm worthy, or I have felt like I have needed to prove my self-value and my self-worth to people in my life from childhood. I have felt like I had to prove that I was worthy enough to be loved and that I was worthy enough for people to put their time, energy, and their love into. I felt like I had to work for people's attention, work for their love, work for their affection, all super really terrible shit. And that's because I didn't have an easy childhood, but we're not going to get into that. But I struggled with that my entire fucking life. And when I had that orgasm in that session, I realized how fucking worthy I was in that moment and how anybody who made me work for their love, affection, or time and energy were just not my people. Anybody who made me question my self-worth and my value to them was not worth having in my life. Anybody who took for granted the level of love, affection, vulnerability were like anybody who took me for granted in any fashion were not worth having in my life. It was this insane moment of just absolute clarity. Because in that moment, I recognized anybody who gets to see me like this, that's a fucking privilege. And they should treat it like a privilege. And they should treat my energy, my life, my existence within their life as a privilege. It should be seen as something impactful. And anybody who minimizes me on any level doesn't belong in my life. Yeah, all this came from masturbation. It's really amazing if you've had one of those style orgasms where it provides this epiphany of sorts. And this is like the first time I ever experienced one. And it literally changed my existence. And ever since I had it about 2 weeks ago, I've been living my life completely differently. And I laugh because it sounds so trivial that an orgasm could produce that, but it isn't trivial because orgasms are a way to connect with yourself. And in that moment of recognizing my self-worth, I also recognize the power of vulnerability. And I've spoken about this before, and I struggle with vulnerability, not on like a level. It's so easy for me to get up here and talk about this stuff with you guys because you're listening and you're there and you're supportive. And I can step outside myself and think, this isn't about me, right? If I talk about this out loud, I'm helping other people and I'm making them feel safer. So this isn't about me. So if I get a little uncomfortable about it or I get a little shy about vulnerability, I just like click this, like compartmentalize this aspect or flip this switch where I'm like, this isn't about me. Get up and talk about it. But on a personal level, I really struggle with that with the people in my life. Like I very much struggle to let people in and I struggle to let people see me at that level of vulnerability. And I saw myself in that moment when I had that orgasm in this, like the most raw moment a human can experience, right? Because when we orgasm, we are literally like, in a way, the animal version of ourselves. We are this raw carnal being. We are experiencing pleasure to the point where sometimes the rest of the world just shuts out and you feel your body take over. And it is so rare to have that level of connection with yourself. And it's so vulnerable because in that moment, you have to recognize that that intensity that you're feeling is an intensity that you're also safe with. And I felt so vulnerable in this moment when it happened that, like I said, my emotions went everywhere. I was laughing. I, at one point, almost cried because it felt so good. My body literally took over. It was shaking. It was convulsing. It was just experiencing being in that moment. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this vulnerability is so fucking powerful. And because I allowed myself to be vulnerable with myself in this sexual way, I started allowing myself to be vulnerable with myself in other aspects of my life because it all creates a ripple effect, right? When you feel innate power and you feel strength, it trickles or creates a ripple effect in every aspect of your life because you believe, hey, I was just so vulnerable in this moment. I was able to have this style orgasm because it does take a level of vulnerability to even allow yourself the permission to go there. And you recognize, my God, when I allowed myself to be vulnerable and look at the magic that happened afterwards. Look at the power that I exuded. What if I showed up in my life like this and just started being this vulnerable on a level? What if I stopped overthinking about everything that I was going to say? What if I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head that I knew that were going to be difficult in order to feel some sense of control? What if I just said what I felt and didn't make anybody's reaction about what I said mean anything about me? What if I gave myself the permission to just speak my truth more often? And because I felt this. I have been more vulnerable in the last probably 2 weeks than I have in my existence as a human being. I've had conversations with family and friends, and I've laid it all out on the table. I've said how I felt. And even though in that moment of me stating how I felt sick to my stomach, like my stomach twisted and turned during some of these conversations, I still did it. And now I never have to sit here and think to myself, what if, right? We get wrapped up in those, like, what if I would have said this, or what if I would have like told them how I felt, or what if I would have conveyed that I was feeling this way? Would it have changed things? But I was too scared to, and I was too nervous to in that moment. And for the last few weeks, I'm just like, say it. Like a fucking little other demon on my shoulder being like, just say it, say it. And so I've said it rather than avoiding it, which is my name's Amanda King. I'm an avoidant attachment syndrome. I have avoidant attachment style, whatever. I think a lot of us do, where I tend to avoid difficult conversations because I don't like getting vulnerable. And I'm afraid that if I allow myself to be vulnerable in that moment with that person, that person's going to ultimately reject me, abandon me. I have insecurities just like every other fucking person on this planet. And I thought to myself, but what if I just put myself out there a little bit more? What if I just said the thing that I wanted to say? And then if they rejected me, or they have no reaction towards it, or they just don't pay attention to it, it doesn't matter, because in that moment, it's not about their reaction. It's about me being vulnerable and getting it off my chest and saying it. When you allow yourself to reach a level of vulnerability with your masturbation practices, sessions, whatever you want to call them, you allow yourself to recognize that vulnerability is one of the most powerful tools on this planet, and that your vulnerability is something that should be embraced rather than pushed aside. That vulnerability is strength, not weakness. That expressing your emotions and your desires and your wants is so powerful. And there are so many people on this planet who are so stuck in their own lives because they can't do that. But you have the power to do that, because you've now unlocked this level of yourself. I like always think of like a video game, right? We're trying to achieve different levels. We're trying to beat different bosses in order to be at this next level. And when you get there, it is the most freeing fucking experience in your life. And being able to just say what's on your mind, and or say, fuck that, say what's on in your soul and what's in your heart, and not react in a way to what other people's reactions are to that. And to be able to walk away and just be like, I said what I needed to say. I got it off my chest. I reached closure, whatever it is. I said that. And it may not have turned out the way I wanted to, but at least I was ballsy enough to put myself out there. That's what vulnerability is, right? And that's what we struggle with so much with sex too. But if you allow yourself to reach that level of vulnerability with yourself during sex, then it makes it easier to say to your partner, I just had the most mind-blowing orgasm, and I want to talk to you about it. And I want to talk to you about how I felt. And I want to talk to you about what I did. And I want to talk to you about how I can feel like that more often with you. It may help you have that discussion that you have been avoiding with your partner because you were scared of saying what you need to say because you're afraid of their reaction, or you're afraid of losing them, or you're afraid in general because you were brought up in a household that didn't discuss these things, right? Sex is considered so taboo. It's things that we're not supposed to discuss. We're supposed to avoid all of these fucking topics, which lead us all to have very dissatisfying sex lives. But what if we didn't? What if we allowed this vulnerability that we feel during self-pleasure to be in every aspect of our lives? Because with unlocking this self-worth and this vulnerability, you feel more confident in yourself because you get to know yourself at a whole new level, and you trust what you feel more, because when you let yourself go to that precipice of pleasure, you then trust yourself with every fiber of your being, and you trust how you feel, because in that moment when you trusted how you felt, something really beautiful happened. And that's why I will forever be an advocate of self-pleasure, especially for women. And even as I posted this on Snapchat this story and I started getting all of this great feedback. I got a message from a woman who said, I've never been able to come, but I don't masturbate often or like really at all. And that's what hurts me more than anything, is that we put our pleasure, our self-confidence, our self-worth, our vulnerability in other people's hands, our validation in other people's hands. What if we started doing that for ourselves? And masturbation is that first step. And you may think I'm fucking crazy to dedicate an entire episode of the podcast to talk about this. You may think this is just like Jesus, like this is a little bit out there. It doesn't matter, because the people who need to hear this, they're going to get it and they're going to understand it. Because when you unlock this level of connection with yourself during masturbation, you do become a whole new person. You are able to be more self-confident in yourself because you know you at such a deep physical, emotional, and soulful and sexual level that you become a force to be reckoned with, because you just know what's right for you and you're able to express that and you're able to be a more authentic version of yourself. And I just thought in that moment when it happened to me, it was so transformational and so powerful that if I didn't talk about it and I didn't tell people about it, then I felt like it was kind of doing an injustice to people. I live my life and I guess teach in a way through my own personal experiences and just having open discussions about them. And I think that we all, especially as a woman, I feel that we never really truly allow ourselves to let go and feel pleasure at the level that we actually could. And when we do, we become different beings on every level. And I think that that's just really beautiful. And I think that that's something that I just want more women to experience. I want you guys to love on yourselves more, appreciate yourself more, validate yourself more, recognize how worthy you are more. I want you to be more self-confident and self-assured. And I want you to be able to express your wants and your desires to your partner, to yourself, to everyone in this fucking world on every level. And I truly believe that you will not be able to do that if you cannot be with yourself in that moment during masturbation. And I certainly couldn't when I went through it. And I have never been more in tune with my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions than I have over the last, I think 2 years now. I started doing, like, I've just been on my, I guess, self-pleasure journey. And it's been the most transformational 2 years of my entire life on every level. I'm so much happier than I used to be. Not that I wasn't happy before, but I am evolving and becoming a whole new person, because every time I get in there, every time I take some time for myself and just be with myself on that level, it allows me to be more self-confident and more self-assured, and just, it makes me feel like I'm home, and it makes me feel like I am my safe space. I had a friend who I was having coffee with at the farmer's market a couple weeks ago, and she was dating this guy. And, you know, we all have that friend that is dating the person that we don't necessarily approve of. And she said, well, he just came into my life at a really integral part of my life. He is my safe space. And I, in that moment, just like literally went, because no other person in this world is your safe space. You are your safe space. And I said that to her. I said, you've got to find a safe space with yourself. You're not as safe with other people as you are with yourself. Even my partner, who I have been with for almost 10 years, he provides me a safe space, but that's because I provide it for myself first. It's not up to our partners to provide us with that. They should definitely provide us with a safe environment. But if we don't feel safe with ourselves, no matter how innately loving and nurturing and caring our partners are, no matter how much they provide that safe space, we will never ultimately feel safe because you don't feel safe with yourself. And so, if anything you learn from this episode of just talking about this is that the more you self-pleasure, the more self-confident you will be. Ladies, the more you will unlock all of these different layers of yourself, the more beautiful you will feel, the more powerful you will feel, the more you will trust yourself, the more you will just be in your existence and appreciate every single second of it. And so, moral of the story, go touch yourself today. And if you haven't in a while, I understand that the idea of it may seem scary and may seem just like, oh, it's far beyond me, or I don't need to really do that because, like, I don't really need that pleasure in my life. You absolutely fucking do. You need that pleasure in your life. Like I said at the beginning, self-pleasure is self-care. We think about self-care and we label it as like, oh my God, I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to eat my food, like not in front of a computer, or I'm going to take a luxurious bubble bath. That's self-care. Masturbation is self-care as well. It's the exact same thing. It is taking time out of your schedule to reconnect with you and to treat your body the way it deserves to be treated, which is to be worshiped, loved, honored, cherished during that moment by you. So go out and just be with yourself today. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you know anybody who needs to hear this, please feel free to share this episode. Go review this episode. Share the podcast with your friends. Screenshot it. DM me. Tell me how much you love the episode. Whatever you feel like doing. As always, like, come read Smex Magazine. Smex Ed. I can't even say the name right. Smex Ed Magazine at www.smexed.com. I've even thought about writing an article about this because it was fucking life changing. It feels so weird to talk about on such a public platform, but it literally changed everything for me. And it is just something I feel all women should experience because it'll just, I don't know, it'll change your life. So I love you guys, and I will see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to Smex Ed with Amanda.
And some parting words for you today. Remember this: no matter how hard society pushes you down, no matter how many times you fall, as long as you get the fuck back up, they can never stop you. You are unfuckable with. You will win. Don't allow this world to dictate how you show up in it. Don't allow society to make you bend the knee. Instead, make them bend theirs. And don't forget, if you like what you heard, go on to iTunes and Spotify and leave your girl a review. Until next time, my beautiful people.